Dear learners, welcome back to WSE English Learning Tips through Storytelling, where every step of your English journey is filled with inspiration. Let me start with a question that might feel a little too familiar. Have you ever looked at an English sentence, recognized every single word, paused for 3 long seconds, and still thought, wait, what is this sentence actually trying to say? Because I have. And not just once. For years, grammar felt like a mysterious machine with invisible gears and confusing buttons, and every time I tried to use it, I felt like I was pressing the wrong one. I remember sitting in my bedroom in Toronto, staring at a grammar exercise about the past perfect tense. I kept rereading the same sentence. She had already left when I arrived. Somehow, the order of those verbs made my brain twist into a pretzel. I understood each word, yet the meaning slipped right through my fingers. It wasn't just frustrating, it was embarrassing. I began to wonder if something was wrong with me. Why could everyone else move forward, while grammar held me hostage like an unbreakable puzzle box? Maybe you felt that too. Maybe grammar, instead of helping you speak clearly and confidently, feels like a wall you keep running into, a wall that never moves, no matter how many times you crash into it. And if you've ever sat at your desk promising yourself, today, I'll finally understand conditionals, only to end up watching cat videos because your brain refused to cooperate, then we're already friends. I used to do the exact same thing. But here's the twist, something changed. Not suddenly, not magically, but gradually, in a way that surprised even me. Grammar went from being the villain of my English journey to becoming a quiet friend that helped me express thoughts I didn't even know I had. It didn't happen because I studied harder. It happened because I discovered a completely different way to approach grammar, one that made it feel natural, almost effortless. If you'd like to support our work, you're welcome to like, comment, share, or join us. Your support means a lot and helps us keep going. And trust me, by the end of this story, you will see grammar not as an enemy you have to fight, but as a powerful tool waiting to be on your side. Are you ready to hear how this transformation began? My name is Emily, and I used to believe that English grammar was designed specifically to make me feel foolish. I grew up in Vancouver, where my classmates seemed to absorb grammar rules effortlessly, like they were born knowing what a present perfect continuous was. Meanwhile, I was the girl who read a sentence 5 times before daring to raise her hand, terrified that my understanding was wrong. If grammar were a video game, everyone else was playing on easy mode, and I was stuck on nightmare difficulty without any weapons. My breaking point came when I was 17. I had been preparing for a school debate. The topic was about whether technology isolates people. I wrote my speech in English and handed it to my teacher for feedback. She circled so many parts of it that it looked like modern art, read everywhere, like someone had spilled jam across the page. Under one sentence, she wrote, "Your ideas are strong, but your grammar hides them." That comment stung more than anything else she could have said. It wasn't that she called me wrong. It was that she suggested my thoughts, the things I was proud of, were invisible because I couldn't express them correctly. I went home, sat on my bed, and stared at that sentence for hours. Was grammar really powerful enough to silence my ideas? Could missing a single auxiliary verb erase the meaning I worked so hard to create? The next day, something even more humiliating happened. During the debate, I forgot the structure of a conditional sentence. Instead of saying, if people rely too much on technology, they might lose real human connection, I said, if people lose real human connection, they might rely technology, and the moment the words came out, I could see confusion spreading across the room. My opponents smiled. Someone in the audience chuckled. I felt my cheeks burn so hot I wished I could melt into the floor. After the debate, I walked home in silence. Every step felt heavier than the last. I wasn't sad because I lost. I was sad because I realized something frightening. I wasn't failing grammar. Grammar was failing me, or at least the way I had been learning it. Memorizing rules hadn't helped. Fill-in-the-blank exercises hadn't helped. Reading endless textbook explanations hadn't helped. The more I studied, the more grammar felt like a dictionary of instructions that didn't belong to me. One night, while sitting at my desk and staring at yet another page of confusing exercises, I asked myself a question that changed everything. What if the problem wasn't me? What if the real problem was that I was treating grammar like a museum, something to observe, not something to use? Have you ever had a moment like that, where you suddenly realize the method you've been using isn't broken, it's just not yours? That question pulled me into a new chapter of my learning journey. Instead of chasing perfect answers, I began noticing patterns. Instead of memorizing rules by force, I tried to understand how those rules behaved in real situations. I stopped trying to impress grammar, and started making grammar work for me. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick, but it was the first time English felt like something I could shape with my own hands. Little did I know, that small shift in thinking would open the door to a set of discoveries that made grammar not just understandable, but exciting. And soon, I'd stumble upon 3 learning practices that turned grammar into something I never imagined it could be: natural. What came next was not magical, dramatic, or instantly life-changing. It was slow. It was ordinary. But it was powerful, like adding a single drop of water to a glass every day until one morning, without realizing it, the glass is finally full. My relationship with grammar changed not because I became smarter, but because I stopped forcing grammar to fit into a classroom box and instead invited it into my daily life. I want to share the 3 practices that guided me from confusion to clarity. They didn't just help me understand grammar, they helped me feel grammar. The first discovery happened unexpectedly during a winter evening in Vancouver, when I overheard my sister watching a cooking channel online. The host said something that caught my attention: "I've been preparing this sauce for a few hours." Normally, I would have let it pass, but something about that sentence clicked inside me. I realized that the present perfect continuous wasn't just a tense, it was a feeling. It showed time, effort, and continuity all at once. It wasn't grammar for grammar's sake. It was grammar serving a meaning. That was when my first major shift began. Grammar is not a set of rules, it is a system of expressing relationships: time, cause, effect, intention, desire, doubt, and emotion. Tip 1. I stopped studying grammar as rules and started studying grammar as patterns of meaning. Before this change, I studied grammar the way most learners do, isolated and disconnected. I would memorize something like, "We use the present perfect to talk about actions that started in the past and continue to the present." And after 10 minutes, I couldn't remember any of it. But once I began asking what a structure was trying to express, the learning experience transformed. Instead of thinking, "This is the past perfect," I asked, "Why is this event happening before another event in the past?" Instead of thinking, "This sentence uses a modal verb," I asked, "Is the speaker unsure? Is there possibility? Is there obligation?" Here's a real example from my notebook at the time. The first version shows how I used to learn. Past perfect equals had plus past participle. Used to show something finished before another past action. Example: I had eaten dinner before she arrived. That explanation didn't stick. It looked like a mathematical formula with no emotional connection. But look at my new version. The past perfect is for memories layered on top of other memories. It's like saying, there was already a world before this moment. Suddenly, the tense became a visual image, not an abstract rule. And images are easier to remember than definitions. Grammar stopped being a puzzle and became a map. Every tense was a doorway to a certain type of meaning. The present simple wasn't a habit tense. It became my tense of identity. I wake up early. I love music. I believe in second chances. The present continuous wasn't about verb forms anymore. It became my tense of progress. I am growing. I am learning. I am becoming someone new. Have you ever noticed how grammar feels easier when meaning is clear, but impossible when you don't understand why something exists? Once I answered the why, the how took care of itself. Tip 2. I started using grammar in microcontexts, tiny worlds where rules came alive. Here's the biggest mistake I used to make, and maybe you've done it too. I tried to learn grammar in one universe and use it in another. I memorized textbook rules, then walked into real life and panicked because real life didn't look like my notebook. So I created microcontexts. A microcontext is a small, specific situation where one grammar structure naturally appears. For example, I learned the second conditional not as, if plus past tense, would plus verb, but as my tense of impossible dreams. My notebook said, if I had wings, I would fly to New Zealand. If I were invisible, I'd live in a library after closing time. If winter never ended in Vancouver, I'd drink hot chocolate every day. Suddenly, grammar became a playground. I wasn't obeying rules. I was building worlds. Here's another example, the present perfect. Old way, we use the present perfect for experiences. New way, this is my storytelling tense, for things that happened, but are still alive in me. I wrote. I've met people who changed how I see myself. I've tried sushi in Japan and fell in love with the quiet magic of small restaurants. I've failed more times than I can count, but every failure taught me something. Every sentence was real. Every structure held meaning. Grammar wasn't something I memorized, it was something I lived. And here's the genius of microcontexts. Once I connected a tense to a type of thought or situation, it became automatic. The tense chose itself. I stopped asking, what is the rule, and started feeling, this is the only tense that makes sense here. The moment grammar becomes instinct, not calculation, everything changes. Tip 3. I trained my ears before I trained my hands. This was the breakthrough that shocked me the most. I always believed grammar was something you learned with your eyes, in books, on worksheets, through charts and tables. But then I noticed something strange. Native speakers rarely think about grammar consciously. They don't analyze sentences. They imitate patterns they've heard thousands of times. Grammar is not born in the brain, it is absorbed through the ear. So I did something radical. I stopped reading grammar rules for a full month. I didn't abandon grammar, I changed the way I encountered it. Instead of studying explanations, I listened for structures in real conversations, podcasts, interviews, and even cooking channels. Whenever a native speaker said something like, I'm thinking of trying something new, or, I was supposed to meet him yesterday, I paused and asked myself, what situation made that structure necessary? I discovered something astonishing. My brain began recognizing patterns without my permission. Hearing grammar repeatedly made it feel familiar long before I fully understood it. It was like listening to a melody. Sooner or later, your body remembers the rhythm. During this time, every conversation I overheard became a grammar lesson. At the bus stop, someone said, "I should have called you." There it was, regret. Should have plus past participle. It didn't feel like a rule. It felt like a feeling. And once a structure has an emotion attached to it, it becomes unforgettable. To test myself, I tried something playful. I imagined myself joining conversations I heard around me. If someone said, "It's been raining all week," I challenged myself. What sentence can I add using the same tense? I answered quietly. "It's been making me feel sleepy," or "It's been ruining my morning runs." Suddenly, grammar didn't feel like a system outside of me. It lived inside my thoughts. I also practiced what I now call grammar shadowing. It's like normal English shadowing, but with a twist. Instead of copying the whole sentence, I copied just the structure and replaced the details. For example, if a speaker said, "I'm working on a new project," I repeated, "I'm working on fixing my pronunciation." That one technique did more for my grammar instinct than 5 years of textbooks combined. Tip 4. I used mistakes as highlighters, not enemies. This might be the hardest part emotionally, but it changed everything. I used to feel ashamed every time I made a grammatical mistake, especially in front of others. I thought mistakes were proof of failure. But after that painful debate, I realized something: mistakes are proof of movement. A mistake means you're reaching beyond your comfort zone. So I did something unusual. I kept a mistake journal. Instead of avoiding errors, I collected them. Whenever someone corrected my grammar, instead of feeling embarrassed, I wrote the mistake down like a treasure. Under each entry, I added one short sentence: "Why did this happen?" Not the rule, the reason. That small question changed my brain. Mistakes stopped hurting me and started teaching me. One day, I wrote in my journal. I said, "I'm agree," instead of "I agree." Why? Then I wrote my discovery. Because in English, agree is not a state like hungry or tired. It's an action of the mind. Understanding that difference was worth 100 exercises. Something beautiful happened after a month. I started making fewer of the same mistakes. My confidence grew not because I was perfect, but because I was aware. And maybe this sounds strange, but grammar became fun. It felt like solving mysteries, not avoiding traps. Tip 5. Bonus: I didn't aim for perfect grammar, I aimed for flexible grammar. Perfect grammar is a trap. Flexible grammar is freedom. Perfect grammar waits for the right moment, the correct form, the flawless structure. Flexible grammar speaks, imperfectly, bravely, and often. Perfect grammar moves like a robot. Flexible grammar moves like a human. When I stopped aiming for correctness and aimed for clarity, something miraculous happened. I spoke more. I listened more. I learned faster. My grammar didn't improve because I chased perfection. It improved because I let grammar breathe. There was one evening when I realized I was no longer translating rules in my head. I was speaking. Naturally. Smoothly. Without fear. I didn't know when it happened, only that it did. Have you ever imagined what English would feel like if grammar didn't slow you down, but lifted you up? If speaking didn't feel like assembling a sentence, but releasing a thought? That feeling was waiting for me, and these practices were the bridge. The moment everything changed didn't look dramatic from the outside. There were no fireworks, no applause, no angelic choir singing, "Congratulations, Emily, you have mastered grammar." In fact, it happened in one of the most ordinary places imaginable, inside a tiny cafe on a rainy Saturday morning in Vancouver. But inside me, something enormous shifted. I was waiting for my hot chocolate, reading an article on my phone about hiking trails in New Zealand. The writer used several different tenses to describe how each trail felt. "I've always loved this place. I used to come here every summer. I'm planning to explore a new route next week." Normally, this would be the moment where my brain froze. I would have paused, analyzed, doubted, and then given up. But that morning, something unusual happened. I didn't think about the rules. I didn't mentally dissect the sentence structures. I didn't ask myself, is that present perfect or past simple? Instead, I simply understood, immediately, naturally, effortlessly. Each tense carried a meaning that felt obvious, like I was hearing emotions, not grammar. The article continued, "If I had more time, I would hike this trail again." And without hesitation, I whispered to myself, if there were more sunny days in Vancouver, I'd go hiking too. I didn't plan the sentence. I didn't check a rulebook. It came out like a wave, as if the language had become part of me. That was when I realized something that nearly made me laugh out loud. Grammar wasn't a subject anymore. It was a voice, my voice. But the real climax came seconds later, when a tourist couple sitting beside me asked for directions. They were from Japan and struggling to communicate with the barista. Without thinking, I stepped in and helped. I didn't plan what to say. I didn't search for structures. I just spoke. Smoothly. Confidently. Naturally. The entire conversation lasted less than 2 minutes, but those 2 minutes felt like crossing a bridge I had been afraid of my whole life. When the couple thanked me, my heart didn't race from panic, it raced from joy. As they walked away, I sat back in my chair and felt something I had never felt before while using English, peace. For the first time, grammar wasn't a cage keeping me silent. It was a set of wings. That evening, as I walked home in the rain, I caught myself smiling. Not because I was perfect, but because I wasn't afraid anymore. Grammar had finally become what it was always meant to be, a tool, not a test. A way to show my thoughts, not hide them. A way to connect, not separate. Have you ever had a moment like that, when something you once feared suddenly felt like an old friend? If you haven't yet, don't worry. Every learner has a turning point. Mine happened in a cafe. Yours might be waiting in your next conversation, your next question, or even your next mistake. Looking back now, I realize that my journey wasn't really about grammar at all. It was about identity, courage, and the quiet belief that I didn't have to feel stupid just because English felt difficult. For years, grammar was a wall between me and the person I wanted to become. It made me doubt myself. It made me hesitate. It made my ideas feel smaller than they were. But once I stopped treating grammar like a battlefield and started treating it like a language of meaning, everything changed. If you take only one lesson from my story, let it be this: grammar doesn't become natural when you memorize more rules. It becomes natural when those rules begin to serve you. When they help you express your thoughts more clearly. When they stop being something you study and start being something you feel. Remember the shifts that transformed my journey. Grammar became meaningful when I learned to ask, why, instead of, what. Grammar became alive when I connected it to micro-contexts, tiny worlds where structures had purpose. Grammar became instinctive when I trained my ears, not just my eyes. Grammar became powerful when mistakes stopped being monsters and started being messages. Grammar became joyful when I aimed for flexibility instead of perfection. These weren't shortcuts. They were doorways. Every step pulled me closer to the version of myself who spoke without fear, who read without hesitation, who listened not for correctness but for connection. And perhaps the most surprising thing of all is this: I didn't notice when the struggle ended. It didn't happen in a single moment. It happened quietly, in all the times I tried again when I didn't feel ready. So, here's my question for you, and think about it sincerely. Which stage of this journey are you in right now? Are you still memorizing rules you don't understand? Are you afraid of making mistakes? Are you waiting for the day when English feels effortless? Or are you already closer than you think? Every learner, including you, has a turning point. You may not see it now, but you are building it one sentence at a time. There is a quote I keep close whenever I doubt myself. It's simple, but it carries the truth of every language learner's journey. We don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. This means that confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you prepare for. If you build habits that support real communication, your English will eventually support you in return. So let your training be meaningful. Let it be human. Let it be flexible. Don't chase perfect grammar. Chase the grammar that lets you speak your story. And if this story helped you, even a little, then I want to invite you to stay with us. Support our work by liking, commenting, sharing, or joining this channel. Your engagement isn't just a number on the screen, it tells us that what we're doing matters, and it allows us to continue creating content that truly helps you grow. Before you go, here is your final challenge: write one sentence today using a grammar structure you used to fear. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be perfect. But let it be yours. Because the moment you use English, even imperfectly, is the moment English begins to belong to you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for learning with me. And remember, the next chapter of your English journey is already waiting. Turn on the notification bell, because in the next video, I'll show you how I improved my listening without spending hours watching movies, and how you can do the same, even if you think you're too busy. Until then, keep going. Grammar isn't a wall in your way. It's a bridge beneath your feet.